Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon all of you. This is a video response to Brother Jose. I would like to basically talk to him and tell him about why I believe that Islam is the true religion and why I believe the God of Islam is the true God. Now, although I was born in a Muslim family, when I grew up, at first all I knew was about Islam was basically that we're supposed to pray 5 times a day. And other than that, I knew that we only believe that. But at the same time, I did not know too much about Islam until I got older and I started studying into it. And the more and more I looked into Islam, I realized why Islam is so beautiful and why I believe, or why everyone I think should believe, that this is the true God. Well, just to start off, let me go ahead and give you an example. Well, when I look at stuff, I'm the type of person who needs facts. Unless you have facts, you can't believe something truly. I don't believe in this blind faith that a lot of religions, preach. I need facts to believe stuff. Just to get started with an example, like the book, the Quran, which came down 1400 years ago. Okay, now that's a long time ago, and we didn't have the science and technology that we have today, and yet the Quran says things in it that has so many facts to it that are still undisputed till this day. For example, let me give you just an example. I made a little diagram here. If you look at this, right here, it shows that for land it shows you the number 13, and for water it shows you the number 32. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is basically in the Quran, there's a lot of words that are mentioned in there a certain number of times, which have a significant meaning behind it. Just to give you an example, the word day shows up 356 times in the whole Quran. And just by chance, that's how many days we have in the year. And then another example is the word month shows up in there 12 times. In the whole Quran, you only find the word month 12 times. I mean, there's a lot of these types of things that are just, I mean, they're pretty cool just to know that, wow, I mean, this actually works out like that. But, I mean, that could be something easy to come up with. But let me give you something this is mind-blowing. Now, remember, this is 1400 years ago. The word for land showed up in the Quran 13 times. The word for water showed up 32 times. Now, why might this be significant? You see, they add up to make the number 45. The reason that's so cool is because now if you take 13 and you divide it by 45, the number for land, you divide it by 45, you end up getting 0.28. 0.28. And when you take water, which is 32, and divide it by 45, you end up getting 0.71. Now, the interesting thing about this is, in the world today, we know that when you look at the composition of the Earth is actually made up of 0.28% land and 0.71 of water. Now, how did somebody 1400 years ago put this in the Quran unless it is God himself, who had given these words down through the angel Gabriel? I mean, that's just one fact. And other than that, I mean, there's so many other things. Like, for example, the shape of the world. 1400 years ago, might I remind you, everyone thought the world was flat. Now, in the Quran, it actually mentions that the earth is shaped like the egg of an ostrich. That's not even saying that the world is a sphere. That goes further a step and shows that it is actually an oval shape almost, which it really is. I mean, that's just incredible. 1400 years ago, we didn't have the technology to see the shape of the earth, That's another reason I think these are the words of God. Another reason is the stages of the embryonic development of a human. It goes into so much detail in the Quran. It basically just tells you that there's 3 different stages that a human goes through when they're being developed. And that's something that we learned recently. 1400 years ago, you got to remember now, they didn't have microscopes. So Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was not able to, use a microscope to look at these things. I mean, this was obviously something that was given to him from a divine spirit, being God. Another thing is, the Quran mentions the preservation of Noah's Ark. Now, this is like so long ago, and it said that Noah's Ark was going to be preserved. And it wasn't recently until like the last 20 years that they've actually discovered where Noah's Ark is. I mean, that is something that is very incredible to me. This was in the Quran, and here it is now. Other than that, there's the preservation of Pharaoh's body. I mean, you must be familiar with the religion, and you've probably heard the story of Moses, where he split the water when Pharaoh and his men were after him. Basically, Pharaoh drowned in the water, and in the Quran, it goes further to tell the story that after Pharaoh died in the water, that God was going to preserve his body as a sign for the true believers to show, this is what happens basically to you, if you don't know the true God and the true religion. And now what is it? 6,000, no, 3,500 years later, Pharaoh's body has been discovered, and it still has hair that's intact on its head. I mean, now for something that's that old, I mean, that's some incredible thing. And the Quran that tells you that 1,400 years ago that his body was going to be preserved, and here it is now. I mean, that's another sign to me. That's just, I mean, you can't argue with these. The thing that I love about Islam is it's a religion that's of logical reasoning. Every question can be answered, and it doesn't resort to blind faith. Basically, a lot of religions, they tell you to just have blind faith. And the thing about Islam that I really like is that science fits with it perfectly. Like I already told you, the story of Noah's Ark, as it says in the other books like the Bible and the Torah, I believe. The way that it talks about Noah's Ark is that the whole world had a flood that occurred. And science disproves that theory because science shows that some parts of the earth have never been flooded. But in the Quran story, it basically just says that that area or that continent was what was flooded. So science doesn't disprove the Quran when it comes to the Noah's Ark. Another thing is, I already talked to you about the embryonic stages. This is something they learned after they had microscopes. So that fits in with Islam. Another very interesting thing is the speed of light was actually mentioned in the Quran 1,400 years ago when Einstein just discovered it recently. Now you're wondering, where did it say this? Well, basically we all know that in the Quran that it describes that angels are made of light. And when God basically describes how fast angels travel, God says that in the Quran, angels travel in one day the same distance that the moon travels in 1,000 lunar years. Now, if you do the math, or you can look it up on the internet also, this comes out to be the speed of light. And this was mentioned way before Einstein figured that out. I mean, that's another thing that's just incredible. Now, to me, Islam is full of so many things, like in the book, the Quran, it's full of so many facts that they're all playing a role with science and everything's coming together and it makes sense. And when everything makes sense like that, that shows to me that, this is actually the words of God, the true words of God. If you have any other questions, brother, I would love to help you. Please think about what I've said and please do some research into it. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you.